Hello. In this video, I'm going to look for a really typical exam style question where trigonometric functions is used to model something in our everyday life. Here we have a minute hand and we are modeling the height of the endpoint of the minute hand using cosine function. Our model is being given here and it's being given that our starting time is 2 p.m. Our minute hand is up here at the highest point, and it's also been given that diameter of the clock is 20 centimeters, height of the lower point of the clock is 100 centimeters. So that information has been given for us. Also, we know that we are modeling minute hand, so we know that it takes 60 minutes for the minute hand to make one full revolution. Before we go into our question, I will show you why the height of the endpoint of the minute hand, why it will be forming a cosine function. I'm using GeoGebra to simulate our clock. Here is our minute hand, and here is the endpoint of the minute hand. And it's also shown here on the right, so we can see the endpoint as a function of time as the clock goes forward. And now, as I make clock turning, you can see that the endpoint of the minute hand is starting to form a wave, and this wave is exactly cosine function. And that's really typical type of a question that we have a circle, and one point in a circle is forming either cosine function or sine function. It depends on where we start on a circle. Now that we start at the highest point, we will have a cosine function like this. So going back to our question, we can see that the model has been given that it's a cosine function, and we need to find these coefficients a, b, and d. And I have a separate video where I explain how these a, b, and d work in a cosine and sine function. In a question also, it's been given the sketch of this cosine function, and there has been given that maximum point is labeled as m and minimum point is labeled as n. And first, we have to find values for m and n. And actually, this is what you always has to do. You have to find the maximum point and you have to find the minimum point because that's all you need. And we can see that the maximum point is 100 centimeters plus 20 centimeters. So that's the maximum height. So m has a value of 120. Then we have a lowest point here, and that we can see from the graph, that's 100 centimeters. So n has value of 100. Here you can see other questions or parts of the question. So we answered already A. We know the value for m and n. Then there's a question that we have to find these coefficients A, B, and D. And then we can form a model, and using this model we can answer what's the height of the endpoint at 240, and then when the height of the endpoint is 115 centimeters for the first time. And here we start by finding the value for A. And here you can see formula how you calculate value for A, or actually being more precise, you find the absolute value for A, because A can also be negative. But in this case, in this question, A is positive. Here you can see how you can know whether A has a negative value or positive value. But this is how you find the value for A, and this is also amplitude. So that's a maximum value minus minimum divided by 2. We get value for A to be 10. Then value for B in our model, we find when we know the period of our function, and it depends on the question. Now that we have a minute hand, we know that one full revelation will take 60 minutes. So period in this question is 60. And here is formula how you can find this value for B. 360 degrees divided with the value for period, we get B to be 6. Then D is the value, and it's also the principal axis of the cosine function. So it's a middle part, and that's the value in middle of minimum and maximum. So basically we calculate average value for minimum and maximum, and in our case it's 110. Now we have all we need to build our model, and here is our model when we enter in values for A, B, and D. So we get our value model to be 10 times cosine 60 plus 110. And first question using our model is find the height of the end point of the minute hand at 2:40. And we have to look from the question that value for t is minutes after 2 p.m. So if clock is 2:40, then our value for t has to be 40. So all we do is we type in 40 into our model, replacing t with 40 and finding value for that using our calculator. And here you can see our calculation using our calculator. So we just type in 40 into our model. Now, last question is asking about when the height of the endpoint of the minute hand is 115 centimeters for the first time. So when we have a question about when, it means time, when that happens. So we are looking for the value for t in our question, and what it means that we are looking for answer to our equation, that so that we will mark our model equal to 115. So now height is 115. We are looking for the value for t. So we have to be solving this equation with our calculator. And I'm solving this equation graphically. I have a separate video where I show you how to solve equations graphically. So I'm gonna do it quickly here in this video. So in our calculator, we go into graph, and then we type whatever is on the left-hand side of the equation. And instead of t, we use x. And since the cosine function is high up there at 100 level, we have to change the window setting by pressing menu, window/zoom, and window setting. Our x value goes from 0 to 60. That's our time value, so that's enough. Y is the height of the endpoint, and we know the minimum value was 100 and maximum value for the height was 130. So if I have our values going from 0 to 130, I can see our cosine function like this. And this is actually a good method for you to check that your model is correct. And now at least the form is correct. Then we draw whatever is on the right hand side of the equation, and that's 115. And now we can see our cosine function and horizontal line 115. And question was that when the height is 115 for the first time. And this is something we have to be careful with cosine and sine, that those are periodic functions. So we will have infinite number of solutions to this equation, but we are only looking for the first time those two functions have same value, meaning we are looking for this first intersection point. We press menu, analyze graph, intersection, and we can find solution to our equation. So x value or t value is 10 when the height of the minute point is 115 centimeters for the first time. So answer to our last question is 2:10 p.m. So here was our another exam style question. Please practice that, and really when you recognize that all we have to find from the question is maximum value, minimum value, and period. So those three things you need, and you can find the model for cosine or sine function, and then you can answer all further questions in the question. See you in the next video.